Hello and welcome into the Luke Winstel Show. I'm your host, Luke Winstel. Thank you all for tuning in. Today I talked with Sam Crenshaw. Sam covers Georgia State men's and women's basketball on ESPN+. He covers Georgia State football as a sideline reporter and also used to cover the Falcons on the sideline, but now covers them on local Atlanta radio station 92.9 The Game. Today I talked with Sam about Georgia State sports and the Atlanta Falcons. We had some very interesting conversations, went off into some great places. I really think you'll enjoy the show. Thank you all for tuning in. Now let's get to the interview. Mr. Crenshaw, thank you for joining me on the Luke Winstel Show. How are you doing today?
Fine, Luke. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing really well. Well, my first question for you, you're the basketball men's and women's play-by-play guy on ESPN for Georgia State. With basketball season coming up, what's the outlook for both of those teams?
Wow, outlook is great. A lot of infusion of new talent, especially for the Georgia State women, who have a lot of seniors last year. But they do return a good core group for Coach Gene Hill. Jada Lewis returns once again, and she's out of McEachern High School and played for those state championships out there. She's going to be the floor leader, and she is one of the top players in the Sun Belt Conference, and as she goes, so goes his team. Allison Johnson came in last season and did a great job out of Norcross, also another state championship program, but she played her first years of college basketball at Kennesaw State and transferred in. Also, the women's team have a number of transfers that they're waiting to bring in, some from places like Pitt. There's one from Clemson and Alabama as well. I wanted to come in and join in with Coach Gene Hill and what he's done. And he came in and did an excellent job last year, had one of the best seasons they've had in recent memory, and even got a chance to play some postseason basketball. So it's been great. It's been great, and I've had a chance. I was at practice one day this week, and it's very upbeat, up-tempo, that I think a lot of people will enjoy coming out to see them play. They got a big game on their schedule. Maryland is coming to Georgia State to play against them, so it's big to have a Big Ten opponent come and play on Decatur Street. So that's going to be big when they have that game.
Awesome. I know you're also the sideline reporter for Georgia State football. What was that experience like when Georgia State knocked off Tennessee? What was that like for you?
Wow, amazing. And I will say this. I won't say I knew that they could win it, but if they were going to, playing Tennessee the first game of the year was the best opportunity. Tennessee right now is a program in a state of, transition with Jeremy Pruitt, and they have very few seniors that play a lot on that team. So they don't have a lot of leaders. Now, they got great athletes. Tennessee always recruits great athletes. But I think so many of the guys have been up there 2-3 years, and once they figure out we're not going to get past Georgia, we're not going to get past Bama, let me play my 3 years of football and try to go to the NFL. And I think they've had a lot of that happen up in Tennessee. So, you got a lot of talented guys passing through there, but they're not staying together long enough that a group becomes leaders. And that's what we saw in the second half of that game. They had no leaders. Their body language was different, and Georgia State was bouncing. They had worked all summer to get ready for this game also. They were in better shape and better condition than Tennessee. And it was amazing to see these big, talented physical specimens. And I'm looking down the line and I'm seeing Nigel Warrior and all these guys who played at Peachtree Ridge and Grayson and North Gwinnett and Colquitt County. It's like a Georgia All-Star team that's up there. They got 25 kids from Georgia on their roster. They've recruited our state very well, and they got more on the way. When you think about schools like Marietta, where the quarterback is committed to go. I covered a young man at Morrow High School last week, Jimmy Callaway, who's a multi-purpose athlete who's committed to Tennessee. They're still recruiting great talent from this area, but you can tell by the scoring results they're just that far behind. But to see Georgia State, go out there and just run the ball and just, take advantage and really, not with smoke and mirrors, dominate the Tennessee defensive side, move them down the field, score the touchdowns, and see that big old stadium that holds over 100,000 people get empty and quiet. It was just amazing to see. It really was.
I know for you covering a lot of local athletes in Georgia, like you mentioned, how do you think Tennessee kind of sells their program right now to recruit those kids from Georgia that you just talked about?
Because Tennessee, if guys want to go play in the league, you know what I mean? If guys want to go play in the NFL, Tennessee is one of those places that you go to, and you get that stamp on your resume, because it's one of those places, just like the other great programs in the Southeastern Conference. They're not getting the guys to stay together like a place like Alabama and Georgia. But the thing of it is, the greatest thing you do at those schools is practice every day. Because on game days, to me, you're only going to have 1 or 2 games during the season. They're going to be real tests for you if you're places like Georgia and Alabama, or now LSU. So it's who you're practicing against every day that just presses you and challenges you to bring out your best. And Tennessee has that. They really do. They got a tremendous coaching staff. When you think, they got Coach Chaney, that was the offensive coordinator at University of Georgia. T. Martin, who led them to their championship many years ago, has returned from Southern Cal. Let me see, one more here that's from Atlanta. Tracy Rocker, College Football Hall of Famer. His son is the big pitcher at Vanderbilt. He's a defensive line coach up there. And Chris Winkie, the Heisman Trophy winner, who started high school football at IMG Academy, on the coaching staff at Tennessee. I'm just saying, that's what attracts guys who feel like, hey, I want to be on the inside track. I want to get in, do some great individual coaching that's going to get me ready to succeed at the next level. The thing is to turn that great individual talent into a team, and that's going to take some time, because people say, well, is Tennessee going to fire the coach? Well, that's what got them in the place they're in now, by making that job a revolving door. So they kind of have to stick and be patient with Jeremy Pruitt. He's a Nick Saban guy. He's been around championships. He's worked at Georgia and worked with Jimbo Fisher at Florida State. So I think those type of things will happen, in the future for Tennessee. But it was great to see Georgia State go up there and get that win. It was a signature win for the Georgia State program. And right now they're 1 win away from being bowl eligible, still in the month of October. And this is rare. This is rare air for Georgia State football. We've never been in this position before. And I've worked with them. I've covered Georgia State and been a part of the broadcast crew for all 10 years of football. It's their 10th year. And this has never been the case before. So it's great to see they're just coming off a rain-soaked but emotional win over Army Saturday night. It was great to see Army had a lot of support. They came out, obviously, whenever they go. They don't get to play games in this part of the country too often. They had a Humvee parked out front. It was something to see the team get off the bus, not dressed in warm-ups and in gym shoes, but in Army fatigues. They looked like soldiers. Getting off and to go into the locker room, it was a sight to see. And the way they played, because then maybe that to be the biggest or the fastest or the strongest, but their technique and their discipline, they're not going to beat themselves. You have to beat them. And then in the end, they had their band to play the Army hymn. And if you ever watch the Army-Navy game, you know at the end what they do. And the fact that they did it here in Atlanta, and the Georgia State players got to stand around them as they sung it. It was a very, very emotional night. And it was great to see Georgia State get a win over programs like Army and Tennessee this year.
I was going to ask, I think you've kind of covered it there, but I just want to check with the win
I
over...
I didn't get into Georgia State men's basketball. I'll talk about the women, but the men, of course, this is the year, the transition from Ron Hunter, the man who fell off the stool. And that's, to me, that's the big difference this year. He's moved on to Tulane, but he leaves a legacy at Georgia State of success and winning. And people expect something, from Georgia State basketball. They expect Georgia State basketball to be good because of what Ron Hunter did, and the fact that he was able to keep players from Georgia in state and on this team when Georgia and Georgia Tech were all talking about, well, we can't get the guys from in-state to come and play. Well, Georgia State did, and they're very successful winning in the NCAA tournament, making it to the tournament more than Georgia and Georgia Tech have in recent years. And so they had a lot of graduation after, DeMarcus Simons, who was had been the player of the year in the conference, is gone after 3 years. He's seeking to play professionally in some place, not the NBA, maybe in Europe. But they left behind a nice little nucleus of players that are coming back. The point guard, Kane Williams, out of South Paulding High School is back, and Nelson Phillips, who played on the state championship team at Warner Robins. At 6'4", this guy can jump out of the gym, but I think the coach is really going to want him to take control at that number 2 guard and really be an offensive threat, and I think you want to see him come out. Coach Rob Lanier, speaking of Tennessee, who was the number 1 assistant under Rick Barnes at Tennessee. And so that was ironically, as Georgia State beat the football team, hey, we beat the football team, and we got your top basketball recruiter too, oh, by the way. And Rob Lanier, who is coming in and promises a bigger team. He says we're going to play bigger opponents, and we want to look them eye to eye. We don't want to be short or come up short. We want to physically match up with those guys. And he went out and recruited. He got a guy at 6'10", Jalen Thomas out of Detroit, Michigan, who's going to be great to watch either at the 4 or the 5. He's going to bring some size and going to make Georgia State a threat on the inside for scoring and rebounding. And a guy named Joe Jones III. You may not know his name. A lot of people wouldn't. He's big, 6'9", 245 guy. I watched him in practice. But you do know the name of his half-brother, Greg Oden, who's a big guy who played, some years ago, had some health issues. Yeah. So Greg Oden's brother is at Georgia State. The big 6'9" dude. He's not as tall as Greg, but a physical presence, and I just see him as a glass eater. This dude is just going to dominate the boards, and it's going to be a different kind of Georgia State team. Still can go up tempo. Still going to play the great defense, like was known with Ron Hunter. But I think Lanier wanted to be not living so much by the jump shot, but at least be a threat to go on the inside. And I think the way this team is being configured, they're going to be able to do that. So looking forward to it. Their first game, they got an exhibition with Point on November 1st. Bruton Parker is the first ESPN Plus broadcast we're going to have on November 6th. They travel to College of Charleston on November 9th. And then comes an interesting weekend. As part of the Empire 2K Classic that benefits Wounded Warriors Project, they will play Duke in Raleigh on November 15th. That's a Friday night. And then on Sunday, they will travel to Washington, D.C. and play Georgetown. That's a weekend for you. So that's big. You're going to play Duke on Friday night. And, oh, by the way, on Sunday, you got to go to D.C. and play against Patrick Ewing and Georgetown. That's how the season is starting for Georgia State. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I think it's going to be a challenging year with a new coach, some exciting new talent. But, man, that's a tough schedule. I mean, you got to play Duke and Georgia. You know what? It's like being at the NCAA tournament. You're going to play one. You know that next team is going to be a tough team, or they wouldn't be there. So in so many ways, the way this schedule is set up is to get them ready for the conference schedule and, the possibility of continuing those strings of NCAA tournament appearances that Georgia State has kind of gotten a little reputation for. So it's an exciting time to be there.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a great season ahead for the men's and women's teams. Now I want to switch gears and ask you about the Atlanta Falcons. You talk about them on local radio station 92.9 The Game. What's going on this year with Atlanta?
Oh, wow. They've fallen and they can't get up. And no one's more surprised than everyone at the station. I mean, we clearly didn't see this coming. We really didn't. We felt like the team had the talent. I mean, my goodness, we're just a year removed from playing in the Super Bowl and having one of the greatest seasons in the history of the franchise. And with so many people back, with Devontae Freeman coming back at running backs, it's wow. Now the offense is going to operate the way it's supposed to operate, and he's going to run the way he does. It's going to open up things even more for Julio. We see this offense just really clicking. And on defense, you paid some money for some people. You made the fans happy. You got the contracts for Matt Ryan. You got the contract for Julio Jones. You got the contract for Grady Jarrett. That's what the fans wanted. They wanted to see you make the commitment to guys who've been doing the work for the team and to the future. And you've had some injuries that have taken place with some key people. But also it's been a disappointment. The secondary, was going to be a little young. So you hope that the experience up front and your linebackers were going to give some time for that secondary to gel and mature and unify. And to me, that hasn't happened. There's not good play in the secondary, and it doesn't matter what quarterback they face. It seems like everybody is able to move through the air against the Falcons defense, which is a disappointment to see. in your draft picks with the offensive line. They haven't been healthy. And now you got your quarterback hurt that you spent all your money on, and Matt Ryan. And you know, with Matt Schaub, this team is not going to move the way it could and should. And so that, you know, this morning we get the news, Mohamed Sanu gone to New England. And people say, is this the beginning of the rebuild? Are we going to tear it all the way down? Or are we going to get certain pieces and try to maintain? I think if you're going to keep Matt Ryan at quarterback, you can't do a complete tear down. You can't do a complete rebuild if you're going to hold on to him. You know, he's at the stage in his career, you know, you're not going to send him through a rebuild. You know, you're going to try to restore and get people around and plug the holes and whatever you need to do to try to keep going on with the entity that you have with he and Julio together. And so that's the tough part about this team. If this is the beginning of the rebuild, well, you don't want this to turn into Miami. You know what I mean? Where guys know, right? Where guys know they're mailing it in every week. We're just mailing it in. We're playing for Tua. You know, and
yep.
Who wants to see that? I don't want to see that.
No.
But you know, and we're not at the end of October yet. We still got division games to go. My goodness, what we gonna do when we play the Saints?
Oh gosh.
You know, so that's the scary part about where we are. That we expected so much from this Falcons team, and felt like this. We wrote last year off and said there were so many injuries to keep people in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the year. That team just couldn't overcome it. But we felt like they had made some of the moves to plug some people in, and this team should be able to move and accomplish things that last year's teams couldn't. We even brought back Matt Bryant, but when he missed against the Cardinals, you're like, oh my goodness, it's not in the cards. You know, that's destiny when you bring a guy back who you know has been like cash money for you. You know, the guy's been cash money for you the entire time, and nobody felt worse than he did, obviously. But you just said, man, well, you too. It happens to you. You know, this is the guy who's been steady Eddie for us. So it's different, and I know the management and the ownership of the team are not pleased with the empty seats on Sunday. The fans are speaking with a very loud voice by saying nothing. And, you know, we'll see. I've been through the worst of times with Falcons before. My family moved to Atlanta in 1974 in the old Fulton County Stadium. I remember the Falcons setting a record, NFL record for no-shows. At one time, the Falcons held the NFL record for no-shows. They bought enough tickets for a game because back then you had blackouts. If you didn't sell enough tickets to call it technically a sellout for your game, your game wasn't shown locally. See, all our games are shown locally now since Arthur Blank brought the team, and we sell out. Well, you don't see blackouts anywhere anymore. The NFL is so popular, but back in the day, the Falcons weren't good, and the people bought the tickets and stayed away like a mass protest. And so the game was shown in town, and there was a stadium with a bunch of empty seats, and all the seats in Fulton County Stadium were like blue. It was like this ocean. It was just ugly. So Atlanta fans, you know, we want to win, and you know, you want it better for Arthur Blank because as an owner, you know that he is dedicated to the team winning. He's not like some owners who cut corners and won't pay players and trade guys rather than, you know, he's done his best to try to, you know, be customer satisfaction. How about that? Like Home Depot. You know what I mean? Right. Actually, he's taken that same principle that you apply to buckets and paint, chainsaws, ceiling fans, and he's applied it to professional sports, customer service. And that's the big thing when I think of that. That's what I think of Arthur Blank is doing. He likes his customers to be satisfied. And that's why he's worked so hard and tried so hard to spend the money the right way, to get the right people in place, and then have a good product for the fans, a winning product. Now, his soccer team is through the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Them dudes are awesome, man. and so much fun to go to. If anyone had told me that you were going to bring professional soccer to Atlanta, you're going to play it in your big stadium downtown, and people are going to sell it out during the summer, I said, okay. But once football starts, people are going to still sell it out. And once football started, they still sell it out. And that's the amazing thing about what has happened with that team and with soccer. Who knew that Atlanta would be the benchmark for professional soccer in the United States? And that's who we are. We've shown people, yes, you can get 71,000 folks to come out and watch soccer in a place that's a football hotbed. You know, we can do that here in Atlanta. And so that's the thing. Other cities wish they could figure that out. They oh my goodness. And so we've kind of done that in just a couple of years. I hope the team can hold together. They've had some injuries, and we would like to see them get back to the championship game. Don't know if the game will be played here or not like last time, but, you know, they're off to a good start for the postseason. Lost Michael Parkhurst, the captain, got a severe shoulder injury, so he's going to be out this week. They're going to need some help on the defensive end, but it's a lot of fun, and they got us a championship. We got to have a parade. Weather was terrible, but it's a championship parade. We got a championship. We got a big trophy on a fire truck coming down Peachtree Street. That's what I want. I want to see more of that. I want to see all of our teams have their trophies on the back of the fire truck on Peachtree Street. We've been waiting a long time here in Atlanta.
Well, yeah, I want to ask, for me, when I look at the Atlanta Falcons, this is their worst year since the 2007 year where you had Joey Harrington, Byron Leftwich, Chris Redman at quarterback. You had the whole.
I hope to one day write a book about that year.
Oh man.
I do, and I mean, a lot has been said about it. Obviously, we're talking about the season when Michael Vick was taken away and,
right.
and everything.
Yep.
I was covering the team at the time, and a lot of people have told his story, but to me, no one's really told the story of the men who were in that locker room. Looking back on it, no one's really told their story. They had their livelihoods hanging in the balance. Luke, the first day of training camp, and I shared this with you, the first day of training camp, it was so bizarre. We go to Flowery Branch for the team to go on the field for its first practice. And on one side of the field, there are people who are Michael Vick supporters wearing them, because of course he was not there, wearing the number 7 jerseys. And on the other side of the street, there were people with dogs on leashes. They brought dogs out to Flowery Branch. And when the team takes the field, somebody rented a charter plane with a streamer behind it, a banner behind it, changed the team's name to Dog Killers, and flew it around the field. And with that backdrop, that team had to go out, and those men had to fight for their professional lives that year. To me, no one has really told the story or allowed those men to actually talk about, looking back on it, what that year was like. And to be constantly asked every day about somebody who wasn't there. It was a trip to the other side, man. And then in the middle of the night, your coach takes off and goes to work in Arkansas and leaves a note posted to the door. That's just stuff not supposed to happen.
No.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But to have been around it and to have seen it, and as I think about it now, there's certain players I would love to just talk with about, guys who are really close to Mike or thought they were close to Mike, guys who came to the team specifically to play with Mike and never got to do it. Just like Bobby Petrino. He didn't come to coach the Atlanta Falcons. He came to unlock the mystery of Michael Vick. How can I have this guy run around, do these thrilling, exciting things, and not get hurt by a heat-seeking linebacker? How can I do this? I think I have a plan. I want this job because I want to do it. And he kind of showed us what his plan was going to do with Lamar Jackson at Louisville.
Right.
He showed us what he was going to do with Michael Vick. We never got to see it. I would love to write that book. I doubt if Petrino would talk with me. I doubt if Arthur Blank would talk with me. That's the thing. But you would need those people to make it, because just what that year, was like, and just the fans, it ripped the city in two. The people who still adored him and wanted him. He's our guy. He was like our Michael Jordan kind of character. We so rarely have those kind of players in Atlanta.
Right.
Those guys that people would pay money to see. Now each of our pro teams has one of those guys. You think about it. People all over the country will pay to see Julio Jones.
Right.
People all over the country will pay to see Ronald Acuna Jr. people all over the country coming up, especially after this year, will pay to go and see Trae Young. If he has another season like the way he finished his past season, he's on the way to that.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, for the soccer team, Joseph Martinez. We got one of those guys on each of our teams for the first time ever that not only get us excited, but make people in other cities buy tickets, because that's what Vic was. I mean, traveling with the team and seeing how people in other cities reacted to him coming was amazing, man. It was amazing to go to other cities and see people show up in number 7 jerseys. Just like people here show up in a 23 jersey when LeBron James comes to town, or 24 jersey when Kobe Bryant used to come to town. Everybody would go out to Champs or Foot Locker or wherever and get you know what I mean?
Right.
People were doing that for Atlanta. People don't used to do that for an Atlanta player. And it's just an amazing time. Just an amazing time.
Yeah, that would be
awesome. I don't know if it's what you call talk about or not, man. but yeah, you brought up that season. That was an amazing season to be in Atlanta and to be covering the Falcons.
Yeah, see, for me, I grew up watching Michael Vick, and that was my first taste of a mobile quarterback in the NFL, like a transcendent superstar player. And then all of a sudden, my parents had to explain to me what happened, and it was just bizarre.
Yeah. He came to this city and just changed the total vibe. And people say, well, Deion Sanders was big, and Deion was. Mm-hmm. Deion was big. It was just a different era of the team. The NFL wasn't everywhere where it was then. ESPN was still fairly new. But now, SportsCenter was ingrained in everybody by the time Vic came along. And so everything he did, we saw over and over and over and over again, And so that was the other thing. Like I said, Falcons had problems with sellouts until Vic came. After Blank bought the team, and for people who don't remember, the first thing he did was the upper deck of the Georgia Dome, tickets for $10. So everybody bought a season ticket. Now we got these PSLs and things that nobody wants to buy.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
But that was one of the main things with that team at the time. When he bought the team, he dropped the upper deck to $10, and then he turned number 7 loose. Well, now you got a waiting list for season tickets. People, people are like, how do I get in there? I want to see this guy. So, but once again, that's customer service. He applied the same principle. What do I have in my store that you want? I want to get you under the roof. I want to get you through the door. Because that's the way as a homeowner, that's the way Home Depot works. You go in looking for one thing, and you end up with 5 or 6 other things. It's like Walmart for your house. That's what he said. I'm gonna get you under the roof and let them turn this guy loose, and you're gonna sign up for season tickets for the next 15 years. And that's what a lot of people thought. They just didn't know that Mike wasn't gonna be here with us for that long.
Yeah, for me, that's one thing that is kind of interesting now when you talk about the no-shows and people not coming to the stadium. For me, I'm not paying that amount of money to go watch this team. I can tell you that right now. But looking at the PSLs and the season ticket prices heading into this year, it's almost like robbery compared to the product they're putting out.
Well, I would say this is the National Football League. It's not just Arthur Blank, but it's the National Football League. And it's a crucial time, an interesting time for the sport of football, and for people who loved it and who played it and wanted to be always that top thing that people love, because the NFL is in a particular place, because and a lot of it goes back to the CTE and the fact that they tried to hide it from people and what it was doing to some of the players. And there are a lot of people who won't support it because of that. There are a lot of people who won't support it because of the price. And so it's become a target. It's become a target for a number of things. Anything out of the ordinary, domestic violence, or anything that becomes something that looks like that the NFL doesn't toe the line on correctly becomes big news and lawsuits because people see the money. And, that's the unfortunate thing. The other side of it is, in other parts of the country, participation in the game is declining. I don't think so much here in Georgia. I think football is enjoying popularity. When I say participation, I mean the kids. I mean youth football. Youth sport is the lifeblood of any sport. If kids ain't playing it, sooner or later it's going away, and or it won't be as good if other than that. And, in so many ways, it's kind of starting to happen. In this state, though, because this state is so well recruited by the colleges, and the high schools are so well supported by the school systems and the communities. And Friday nights are a huge deal no matter where you are in this state. If you're in the city of Atlanta, if you're up in Cobb County, if you're down in Colquitt County, or if you're in some small places like Commerce, Calhoun, Thompson, Georgia, down in Waycross in Ware County. Yeah, it's the place to be. It's the thing, and because of the enthusiasm for it, football is healthy in this state. But there are a lot of other states where it's not as healthy, and not as many kids or people, their parents are steering them away from it. So, and to me, it all goes back to the greed. The owners, you show that they're sitting on a whole lot of money, and that's why, and I think I wonder what could deter people from embracing football and kind of turn away from it, turn it off, and it's the greed. I think people say the same thing you said. I'm not going to pay that much money to go down there and sit and watch that team. It's not a good product, and the owners are like, okay, well, all we got to do is turn our cameras on and we're going to get so much money from the TV deals. Great. I mean, they found out a lot of different things. They've made it obvious that they're doing deals with gambling. They've come out and said they are partners with, I forget, Caesars or whoever out in Vegas. And then you have some questionable calls at the end of a Monday night game a couple of weeks ago. People said, well, wait a minute. Has this got something to do with, making sure certain teams make it to the playoffs and certain teams don't? People get that question in their mind while the league is making money and being obviously and overt, which for years they used to always deny. But now they're being obvious. We are in with gambling. We are in with FanDuel or whatever. We are involved with that. So I just think people see the greed, and I think that's why people react the way they are right now to the NFL. It's still popular. Don't get me wrong. Now
right.
The NFL is still popular, but you wonder what could start chipping away at it. And I think that's a big part of it. Do we have too much NFL? I'm not a big fan of the Thursday night games. I think you don't give players adequate time for their bodies to recover and really prepare. I mean, you could put an NFL game on every night and people will watch it if that's what you're going to do. But I'm not a big fan of the Thursday night games. To me, I watched some of them. It seemed like the players, I'm not saying not giving their best effort, but I mean, if these guys played Sunday and they only had Monday to recover, Tuesday and Wednesday they're on a jet going somewhere to play a game, that's a tough turnaround. It really is. But the league has done it. They've said it. Let's see what happens as far as the preseason. You have some preseason games that they want to charge people full ticket price for, and the players you want to see stand on the sideline with baseball caps on. And I understand that too. You want those players healthy for games that matter. And nobody's going to buy a ticket to see a man on crutches. I understand that. I get that. But
Yep.
you're still charging people full tilt for the ticket. So that's, like I said, people are seeing the greed, and you wonder where it's going. But we'll see. The owners to me, they got to be a little more realistic about the time. Oh, and by the way, the attention spans of the younger fans that are coming along,
right.
They have to deal. All sports, not just football, but all sports are having to deal with that. And that's the other thing that's making soccer so popular. It's 2 hours.
And then you're gone.
And done.
Yep.
Just like college basketball. And you can go to it and you can plan for what you're going to do afterwards because you know it's going to be over. Other sports can't do that. And so, that's kind of going to become the new norm. Yeah, we got something we can go to. We can get down there. We're going to have a good time, enjoy it, and we know afterwards if we want to go something else, we're still going to have time to do it. We're not going to have this overtime. We're not going to have extra innings. We're not going to have, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's that other thing when you come to pro sports. That's the other dynamic as we look at the empty seats in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
And gosh, there are a lot. I looked at the camera when it panned out on Sunday at the Rams game. I was like, oh my gosh, there's no one in the lower bowl. Yeah. That's harsh. And if we're going to melt this team down, that will only get worse. all, you mentioned melting the team down. I've got one more question for you. What do you think, or what would you project as we stand right now? What would a rebuild look like for the Falcons, or a retool? What are you thinking is realistic for the team as they try to climb back towards contention? But we know that won't happen this year, but in the future.
Oh, no, in the future. And maybe you might have to part with some other, Sanu is when he gets your second-round pick. You might have to look at another player that you can part with and see you have value. You wonder who on defense could you get anybody for. And then people talk about Vic Beasley. They were probably counting on him having a better season to give him some value. What kind of value does he have? So that's the thing, is finding players who would have the value that you can afford to let go of in order to get some draft picks to help you kind of replenish. But even with the draft picks, you're talking about young players who, even if they're phenomenal college players, it's going to take a minute to process and learn the NFL game. So, that's the catch-22 right now. But if you're going to do it with Matt Ryan, you can't do a complete meltdown. You got to try to plug in and get some things to get forward. You got to get your offensive line healthy. You're probably going to add another piece for that. I don't know who you let go. I don't know if Mac, if you feel like he's done all he can do for you at center, do you bring somebody new in for that position? You got tight ends that do well with Hooper. Although you make any type of trades there, your front line, you brought some guys back like Claiborne and people that you thought were going to really do some great things for you with your defensive line, and you just haven't had any type of pressure on the quarterback. To me, those are some things that you got to address. You got to get somebody is going to get some pressure on the quarterback. Tack McKinley, we're still looking for him too, and I guess the jury's out on him a little bit more than Vic Beasley. We've had several years to watch Vic Beasley. You'd be hoping that Tack will be the guy that he's shown flashes of being. And that's the thing. In secondary, you got to strengthen. I don't know who you can deal. You know what I mean? Who you can trade that would have the kind of value. Sanu is like one of those guys. And so you make the deal, with him, and try to get you some picks. So that's the thing that the Saints do. The Saints, they find guys they can plug in, and you look up and they have some draft picks, have a great season, and they get the draft of Sonny Michel. You're like, how do they get the draft a guy like Sonny Michel? They're always winning. You know what I mean? That
Exactly.
That don't even seem fair. That doesn't seem fair at all. For a team that usually runs quarterback or running back by committee, you know what I mean? They usually plug anybody running back, but no, you're going to get one of the best in the country and plug him in. So, we'll see. We'll also see, as far as the brain trust, who stays and who goes. And that being, a lot of people think for sure it's going to be Dan Quinn, but we're also looking at Thomas Dimitroff too. One of them gonna go, and both of them might go. I don't know. So that to me, that's the thing. As far as saying what it's going to look like, I think you got to see the inner workings and who's going to be around and who's the voice that they're going to hear. If they choose to stay with Dan Quinn because these players are familiar with Quinn, and but you don't like the response from his voice, you feel like there's a new infusion as far as players go. You just ran all your coordinators out.
Right.
Yeah. All new coordinators, and including Armstrong, which I don't know why you fired your special teams coordinator. I thought he was great, man.
Yeah, me too.
Your punter turned in the best tackle all season last year.
Yeah.
How you gonna fire that guy? So I don't know. I just hope that it will be something, an infusion of talent that would just, especially for Matt. He's been good for this team. We mentioned the 2007 season and how he came in after that, said all the right things, did all the right things, and just leveled some things off for the team in this city. And I know a lot of people, there are a lot of detractors from him because he hasn't won enough of the big games. But to me, he did something for the team in the city that was needed at the time. And I know it's been a few years now. A lot of people want to forget about that, but you brought up that season. And Matt's arrival brought some stability for the team, for the franchise, and everybody was able to get around him. And so, that to me, that makes him hope they can do whatever they can do to get the team back there and he still be a part of it.
Well, Mr. Crenshaw, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you joining me on the show.
Yeah, it's been great. Have a good time. I hope I wasn't too long-winded, but enjoy visiting with you.
Thank you all for tuning in to the Luke Winstel Show. Please be sure to follow the podcast on social media at Luke Winstel Show. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you back next time with another show.